do you think qualifies you to be the Minister of Education?
I don't wanna go to school, I just wanna break the rules. Boys and girls across the...
Hey guys, it's your girl, baby Hailey, a girl for camera and a dream, as kind of lit all week long. This episode is about dealing with stress during school. I know every Friday you've been waiting for that bell to go ding-a-ling-ling-ling-ling. So let's get started. The first current event I have for you guys is about a 10-year-old boy who was kicked out of school simply because of his DNA, ? Let's read more about it. On October 10th, 2012, an 11-year-old boy named Coleman Chadman was pulled out of class in California and asked if he wanted to say goodbye to his friends. When he first moved schools, his parents mentioned that Coleman carries a genetic marker for cystic fibrosis. The Chadmans say that a teacher revealed this confidential information to other parents, who then complained that Coleman posed a health risk to their children, inciting that Palo Alto Unified School District to force Coleman to transfer schools, according to their complaint. So they sued, alleging that the district violated the Americans with Disability Act, ADA, and their son's First Amendment right to the privacy of his medical information. I personally feel that the teacher should have never disclosed his personal information, because first of all, you can't catch cystic fibrosis. Second of all, he doesn't have cystic fibrosis. It's just a marker in his DNA, which means he has a higher risk of getting cystic fibrosis. But he does not have cystic fibrosis. So imagine if you went to the hospital and they told you that you have a possibility of getting cancer in the future. And then your teacher emailed parents and told everybody that you could get cancer. And then all the parents complained because they thought their child was going to catch cancer. So then they kicked you out of school. Like, there's no reason, like, yeah, that's not it. That's just not it. In bratty teenager news, a girl sued her school because she was cut from the cheerleading team. Well, dang. If I sued my school for every time I got cut from something, I didn't make the softball team, I didn't make the netball team, I didn't make the football team, I didn't make the field hockey team, I didn't make any team. I can't run, I don't blame them for not letting me on the team, but I should be suing my school every time I don't make the team. So eventually I just kind of gave up. In stress can kill news, an 11-year-old boy, is he 11? Yes. An 11-year-old boy proceeded to commit suicide because he failed his test. That is so sad. My condolences go out to his family and his friends, and that's just a super sad story for me to read and hear. So let's read more about it. An 11-year-old boy commits suicide due to exam and parental stress. Back in October of 2016, for the first time in his entire life, an unnamed boy, let's call him James, had failed his exams for the first time. His parents asked to see his exam, and instead of facing his parents, he decided to lock his door and proceed to jump out of a 17-story window. His mother admits to caning him whenever he got lower than a 70 on his test. Before young James' death, he lied to his parents about his exam results, saying that he scored average, but in actuality, he failed 3 out of 5 exams. His family and teachers describe him as a happy-go-lucky and loving child. Next up, we have an interview with Miss Kim Rego, who is a mindfulness teacher. She's going to teach us how to deal with our stress during school, so roll the clip. Hey guys, it's your girl baby Hailey, a girl for camera and a dream, and it's kind of lit all week long. Today is not the baby Hailey vlogs, it's the baby Hailey show, and we have a very special guest, Miss Kim Rego, who teaches mindfulness. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi Hailey. I started mindfulness about 4 years ago, and I was introduced to it by a documentary called Room to Breathe. And it was a documentary profiling 6 students in a California school, at-risk school. And it profiled the 6 students and showed how mindfulness impacted them over an 8-week period. And how that related to me was that I was at Victor Scott at that time, mentoring, and have been for a number of years. And I realized that the kids there are told to pay attention, or told not to hurt each other's feelings. And really, they don't mean to, or they want to pay attention, and all of the social emotional learning tells them what to do, but mindfulness gives you that space to make a different choice. And so I was really intrigued at how it could help us change our experience. The other reason for me is that mindfulness I knew that my mind was too busy. I call it my monkey mind, and it was often negative and it was often repetitive. And so just by paying attention to what's happening on the inside is a lot easier than changing my external environment, which just happens anyway. So it was really powerful for me to be first introduced to it. And as I said, I've been practicing and learning for 4 years now.
Okay, so can you explain to us what mindfulness is and how it works with the brain?
So mindfulness is a hard thing to describe, because it's like if I was to describe to you chocolate. There's not really words to describe chocolate and really get a good feeling. Or fun. If you were to say, okay, describe what fun is, well, there's words, but it really doesn't give you the feeling of fun. So it's about an experience, and it's becoming aware of the present moment on purpose, non-judgmentally.
For teenagers, we have to go through school, and do you have any suggestions for us, maybe some ways mindfulness can help us get through the stress in school?
Yeah. Wow, a dream of mine would be that all students, which is why I teach in schools, all students would have access to mindfulness, even the little ones, to know in a chaotic environment of which they have no control, that they have this place inside them that they can find peace. So for teenagers in particular, it's the practice. And shall we do a practice? Let's just notice our attention. So just like what I call is just sit attentively, like you're deciding to pay attention. You're not slouched down. Your body's deciding, and your intention is to pay attention. So just sit up and maybe close your eyes and just see if you can pay attention to your breath. And what you might notice is that it's a challenge, that your mind gets distracted, thinks about judging the situation. Why are we doing this? This is hard. I'm not good at this. I don't like this. What am I going to have for lunch? And just each time you notice the mind distracting, just come back to the breath, the breathing in and the breathing out. Breathing in and breathing out. So opening your eyes, just notice how it feels. What does it feel like for you to be still and quiet?
I feel like it's hard for me to focus on my breath because I'm thinking about, I have dance later. I don't want to go to dance later. I have to do my homework. I don't want to do my homework.
Right. So you think about half the time we're supposed to be doing our homework and our mind is not elsewhere. Imagine if we had all that attention and we could choose where our attention went.
Yeah.
I mean, what a gift. So mindfulness is attention training. It really is.
Is there any apps or anything that teenagers could do at home to help with their stress?
Yeah.
With school?
So I would investigate a lot about mindfulness, and there's a great website called Mindfulness for Teens, which is fantastic. And it has lots of apps on it. It has guided meditation so that you could just listen for 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And what you notice is when you start to do this, you can feel your nervous system calm. And the more you practice, the more your nervous system is in this state of calm. So you end up being one of those people that's like, I got this. Mm-hmm. As opposed to this nervousness. So this website, Mindfulness for Teens, and they have a great book, and I think it's called Mindfulness for Teens as well. And there's some other apps. There's an app called Headspace, which is an amazing place to start. It's a 10-day free trial. It's 10 minutes a day. And then you can buy it. I'm not sure how much it's not $4.99 or something. And you continue and you can do 30 days. You can buy what you want. There is a free app called Insight Timer. And you can look at the most popular, which are for sleep. A lot of teens struggle with sleep. Actually, a lot of young children.
I struggle with sleep so much. Like, it's so hard for me to get to sleep.
Yeah, you're not alone. I teach 5-year-olds that struggle with sleep. So just imagine that, right? So their Insight Timer, the most popular apps, the popular guided meditations are for sleep. So you could do that before you go to bed. It's amazing. And what Insight Timer, besides being free, it has a profile. So you could stick in your information and then you could say, I'm going to do this every day for 30 days, and it keeps track of all of the minutes that you do or the apps or the guided meditations that you do. So another one is Calm, which costs us money as well, but none of this is expensive. It's the commitment to doing it. Mm-hmm. It's the commitment. I can tell you that mindfulness will help you with sleep. It will help you with stress. And then the next question is, do you have 5 to 10 minutes every day to do this?
Yes. Everyone can definitely find 5-10 minutes a day to at least help them with the practice of mindfulness. That's such I wouldn't say easy, but such a easy thing to learn eventually if you keep practicing.
Yeah. Because remember, all you have control over is your inside, right? How you react to things. You don't have control of how much homework you get, or that it's Saturday and you have to go to dance. That stuff is what it is. But how your relationship to it matters. And mindfulness changes your relationship to it. It can make you approach it with attention, with calm, with resilience. Does that make sense?
I would like to thank Ms. Rego so much for informing us on how to deal with stress and how to implement mindfulness in our life. Next up, we have an interview with the Minister of Education. And yes, I asked him some deep questions. Like, what qualifies you to do this, honey? Like, really? And what are you doing differently than past governments? Because you all claim to be helping the education system, but I see no changes, honey. I want some real hard evidence that you're trying to ensure the future of our children is bright. So I'm gonna roll the clip. Okay, so in your opinion, is the public education system a good environment for children to learn in?
I think the any education system is a good environment. The environment is actually what you make it. And the public school system actually is one that provides a very comprehensive education system for our children that find themselves within the system. Very few systems in the world have as much resources that the public education system affords with their children. Not only do we have, of course, teaching, the curriculum, but we also have the various therapists and support services in place to ensure that all children that come to public education system are given an equal opportunity to succeed.
Okay. Do you think that the public education system is failing some students with special needs or learning disabilities or in general?
I don't think the system is failing anyone. Again, as I said earlier, it's about what you want to get out of it. And unfortunately, previous governments have not put the type of funding into the education system that I believe should be there to ensure that all children get equal opportunity. But it's something that this government is acutely aware of and have made education a highest priority. So in the coming years, you'll see more resources put in to ensure that persons such as what you described, special needs learning difficulties and such have more resources in place to ensure that they can succeed along with the other children that are there as well.
What are you doing differently than past governments for the education system in Bermuda?
Well, first of all, we've just completed the strategic plan, which is going to be a plan that takes us from 2018 to 2022. It's a 5-year plan, and within this plan is built in what we call milestones,
Okay.
which makes it a little bit different than what we've had previously. And what these milestones are going to do is, as we approach different parts of the plan, we want to go and check and make sure that we're achieving the marks that we say we are. And if we're not, that gives us time to make changes and tweaks to ensure that our children get the best of what it is we're trying to give. Also, what's different with this plan is that we utilize the public heavily to help create the plan. So this plan went out and it talked to the people in Bermuda to say, what is it you think education should be for the public school system? And literally thousands of people gave their remarks. They had meetings all over the country where we would go into living rooms like this, and we would invite your friends. We would say, Hailey, we want to come and talk to you. Can you invite your friends so they can say what they think's wrong with education, what they think can be fixed with it, what it should look like. And so there were literally hundreds and hundreds of those conversations, and that information was taken, collated, and all of the similar things were put together. And then that information went back out to say, well, we've talked to a bunch of people, everyone's kind of along this, what do you think? How do we tweak that? So eventually we got to the point where we started creating what we call prototypes. And the prototypes were then sent out for feedback. And we did 6 prototypes. And in the end, we ended up with 3 meetings up and down the country with the final prototype to say, hey, this is it, any more issues or any more suggestions? And then those suggestions were incorporated into the final document. So what we have is a document that has the input from the community. So no one can really say, look, we didn't know what was going on, or why are we doing this? Because what we talked about is exactly what the community said they wanted, plus adding in the professionals, the education professionals, to say, well, this is how this stuff needs to be done. So what I think, and the question was, what has this government done differently? First of all, starts with the strategic plan. Next starts with giving the resources to the strategic plan to ensure that it doesn't fail.
Okay. And do you think these efforts that you're making will make an impact? Or do you think it's making a major impact, or do you just think it's going to be another system?
No, it's going to make a major impact, because when you talk about education is one of the few things that equalizes everybody, right? Mm-hmm. Everybody has access to some form of education, and education is one of the few things that can change your life, that the next person standing to you, whether they're tall, short, fat, skinny, rich, poor, whatever, they have access to it as well, right? Some will argue that because some people go private school, some people go public school, there's a difference there, but at the end of the day, it's all education, and at the end of the day, we're all striving to get everybody to at least a minimum point to say that they are educated beyond and to this point. And so I view education as the great equalizer, because it doesn't take money to obtain education. Mm-hmm. It doesn't take fancy clothes to obtain education. It doesn't take a lot of things that, when you look at how people compare each other, on and give themselves status, give themselves positions of status. These are some of the things they look at. But education is something that can help equalize that. So it's extremely important that we get this right.
And I feel like in Bermuda we take the education system for granted, because I went to Peru to do a community service trip, and I was building dorms for girl students, and they were walking miles just to get to school, just to have an education. And I feel like in Bermuda we take it for granted, and we go to school, we don't pay attention because we know that it's always going to be there. Mm-hmm. And we should take it more seriously.
And I would have to agree with you on that. What the public needs to do, and some of this falls on the Department of Education and the government and successive governments, is making sure people know what's out there and what's going on. Continuously, I get asked questions about education, and I would say, well, have you read the strategic plan? Or did you know this is going on in the schools? Or this is happening at Bermuda College? And they would say, wow, I didn't realize that. And it kind of answers the question that they had. So we need to do a better job of ensuring our Bermudian people know of the resources that are there for them right here on this island. And in some cases, it's not a requirement for you to leave Bermuda to get some of the things that you think you need to get.
Yeah.
There is the argument of, you know, different experiences, which I fully endorse. Leaving Bermuda, meeting new people gives you chances to experience new things. But there is also some things that can happen locally that you can do that you may find yourself in a position where you're unable to go overseas to do something, but there are avenues locally that can definitely assist you to get to where you want to go.
I mean, my mother and I were having this conversation when we were talking about me going to boarding school because I'm finishing summer school. Well, I wanted to go before I finished, but she was trying to get me to finish a school in Bermuda. So now I'm planning on going to boarding school, but I still don't know because, you know, my family's here and all this stuff. But I mean, I've traveled different places for dance and all these other things to get experience outside Bermuda, and it's a great experience, but it's also good to come home, and it's nothing wrong with staying here because it's a beautiful place and it has a lot of opportunities if you look for them.
Well, I was kind of in the same boat when I was in school. I'm sure your mother can remember these. When we went to school, it was a little bit different system than what we have, and we would graduate at 16. I graduated from high school at 16. I got accepted into university when I was 16. I waited. My parents thought I was too young, so I went off when I was 17. But I actually ended up, after the first year, I very rarely came back until I graduated. Right? And that gave me a chance to experience a ton of other things that I would have never experienced in Bermuda and help form the person that I am today. So I fully endorse, you know, getting these varied experiences, but it's got to be the right experience for you.
What do you think qualifies you to be the Minister of Education?
I have a degree in electronic engineering. As a matter of fact, right? I have a degree in electronic engineering, and I worked at the Department of Works and Engineering. And after I left with some friends and started a company that does land surveying and architectural drafting, and we were looking for young people to train. And I went to the Department of Workforce Development. At that time, it was called something else, Labor and Training. And when when I saw that question and you read it, it's an interesting question, because some people would say it should be someone who's been in the education system and taught, et cetera, et cetera. Some people say it should be someone who knows how to manage a department. And what qualifies me is, first of all, I have the heart for it. I asked for the Department of Education when we were doing the election, and after we won the election, I asked the Premier, you know, please, this is something I'm acutely interested in. For me, the interest in educating our youth has always been on the forefront of my mind. And when I was in high school, I always worked at youth camps, the youth center in town down at Angle Street. I've worked in the youth center down in St. George's. I've always given back in terms of working with disadvantaged, or what we would consider disadvantaged young males through my fraternity, with the Alpha Battalion program, the MAFATAC program at Delwood. I've worked in the prison system, mentoring in the prison system. I've mentored with Big Brother, Big Sister. So I've always been interested in that.
So what do you think parents of these students should do to help with the education system in Bermuda?
Parental involvement is extremely important with education. The previous government put in place a thing called the Parental Involvement Committee. This committee only was constituted after I became the minister, but it was put in place this summer. And what this committee is charged with doing is doing exactly that, going out and kind of figuring out what is it parents should do to enhance their children's success within the schools. I think it's important to point out to everyone that, for me, proper schooling environment involves three entities. That's the students, the teachers, and the parents, right?
Okay.
Because if you don't have synergy between those three, there's always going to be something lacking. Because, you know, you can have, everyone talks about our schools, you know, the condition they're in. You can have the best schools in the world. If you have bad students, nothing's going to happen. If you have teachers that can't really teach, nothing's going to happen. If you have parents that don't support the system to help their children move along, nothing great is going to happen, right? So you can have a bad school and have great teachers, great parents, great students, and great parents, and things happen. So, you know, we need to figure out where do we get to that point. Some parents give Some parents out there, you see, they'll give and they give too much. Some parents will give enough, right? And we've got to figure out a way to get all parents to give at the level that they can. I know that there are always going to be some that have more time, have more money, have more interest, but we still gotta figure out a way to encourage those to say, hey, there are some things that you can do to help us along. Someone had asked me the other day, would the government consider making it mandated that parents get time off from work to attend school functions and such? Which is an interesting thing, but for me, it infringes on employer rights of doing that. And if we're going to the thing is, you can't legislate good behavior.
That's also not practical.
It's not. I don't think it's practical to force employers to allow parents off, because how do you know they're going to the functions, right? The parents need to want to go to the functions, and you can always, and in Bermuda, being the type of society it is, talking to your employer and getting a couple hours off, is not that big of a deal for most employers. I'm not going to say all, but most, it's not that big of a deal. And and very, very interesting, if you ever want to do a study, is as the children get older, the parents' involvement seems to slack off.
Well,
in primary school, it's Christmas play, it's packed to the rafters. Everybody's there. By the time you hit middle school, start doing, by the time you get to high school, maybe if it's a two-parent household, one would show, and they're always looking at the watch. It's time, I went to a prize giving at one of the high schools, and it actually blew my mind that child walked across the stage, got their certificate, and the parents left. Now, I'm not saying that they didn't have anywhere to go, because they could have, but I just found that incredible. And it happened on a few occasions where parents left after their child got the certificate.
That would be me. I mean, I just dip, to be honest. I was like,
and that inherently is one of the issues that we're talking about. Remember, where we have to figure out how to be constructively competitive versus destructively competitive. And I'll explain to you what I mean with that. Is in your classroom, if we're talking about school, in your classroom, you're competing against. Everyone is just striving to be top in the class.
Definitely.
Right? But if you're top in the class and you've done so at the expense of ensuring that the other people don't pass, that's destructive competitiveness. Competition. Constructive competition is you studying with the person next to you and pulling each other along. You may get it better and finish ahead, but you've assisted someone and gave them opportunities to get ahead as well. Education, this is not something we can practice. We don't have scenarios where we can say, well, let's try this, see if it works, and then if it don't, let's try something else. When it comes to education, we're lights, camera, action every single day. So every day that we screw up is a day that our children will never get back. And so we need to be laser focused on making sure that whatever we're doing is best for all of our children.
It's like when I was in public school for 4 years before I went to Summersfield, I didn't really have a teacher because I guess my grade was really bad, and so teachers they just dropped like flies. Every week I had a new teacher, so that's when I missed a lot of my education. And then when I went to Summersfield, I was I had all these gaps in my learning, and that's when I felt well, I'm dumb, and that's when I fell into depression, oh my god, then I kind of grew out of it, and now I'm me, but we can't take those chances. We have to make sure that it's solid and it's a great way to learn and a great environment for our students. Thank you guys for watching so much. I will see you next episode. Bye!